everybody, this is Jean here. Jean Truelove from Truelove Quilts for you. Sitting in my little woods. This is so weird, you're gonna say, all of a sudden you're not in your sewing room, you're in the woods. I come down every morning for a walk, and actually I was in my sewing room. I have a not a story, but a little tiny why I've made what I have made here, which I'm going to show you in a minute. Just a little thing, and it's not a tutorial, but it is a look over my shoulder and watch what I did. I just did it this morning. I started it yesterday. I just had an idea because as you know, we downsized from a large home to a nice size home here. But this house is more of an open concept house, and my other house had many walls. It had room after room after room after room. It was a very large home with tons and tons of walls. This house is open concept, and one room sort of flows into the next, and I don't have a lot of walls. Well, I knew that when we moved, and I had to get rid of, gift, donate, trash, tremendous amount of things. Not trash, some trash, obviously, after living almost 3 decades in a home with 10 children. Lots of trash, but I gave away and donated a tremendous amount of things. And I just had cleared a small space above a doorway that I thought, oh, there's a bit of wall there. And if you know me, that was one of the biggest things about moving. Like, I'm losing my walls because I like stuff, right? I gave away most of my stuff. Well, anyway, I cleared away. I noticed there was an area that I could hang. I could hang some plates. I had a load of decorative plates, and the plates that I had were like Franklin Mint, the Franklin Mint, the Bradford Exchange, plates like that. Collectibles that are now for pennies in a thrift store, right? Because nobody wants them. Young kids don't want them. Anyway, and that was the problem. Nobody really wanted them, so I donated them, and hopefully somebody at a thrift store got my beautiful plates. I had dozens and dozens and dozens of beautiful plates. Well, there was a series of plates that I had in my formal dining room in the corner that were beautiful teacups. Just beautiful, 4 beautiful plates, teacups that I had in a beautiful holder. And I thought, oh, they would look really nice over this one doorway in this new house. So I went and I thought, maybe I didn't give them away. Maybe I didn't gift them. Maybe I didn't donate them. Well, I did. I did. And I went in the basement, and we have some things left, and I went in the barn, and we have some boxes unpacked, and they're gone. They're gone. And I vaguely remember when I was packing up, saying goodbye to them, thinking, oh well. Anyway, it brings me to this little tutorial. I was feeling all sad and nostalgic because I miss my things. Everybody, I think I've addressed this, and people will get annoyed, but so many people were like, oh, you have so much stuff, and once you get rid of it, you'll feel so much brighter and lighter and clear. Well, I don't. I miss my stuff. I miss my stuff. I miss my stuff. I had some beautiful things that I had to downsize, but that's okay. We count our blessings. I'm lucky, but I do miss my stuff. I miss my plates. So anyway, with that in mind, I thought, do I go out and buy 4 more plates? That's a bit naff now. Why would I do that? You know, it's not necessary. But I thought, I know, I have an area, I'll make something reminiscent of my lovely little plates, and that's what I did. I went into my sewing room. Again, this is not a tutorial, but I show you pretty much step by step what I did. But I leave it up to interpretation. I leave it up to the background. I leave it up to however you would want to do it, whatever collage or whatever image you want. But this is what I've made. I just made these 4 little quilts with teapots. 4 little lovely quilts with not appliqued. They are ironed on because these could be used as placemats, or these could be used as small placemats or larger mug rugs. because they're fully batted. They are half quilted, and again, I show you that, and they're just ironed on appliques, which I cut out, and I show you how I actually got the pattern. I got the pattern off my computer. They're called free vectors. Free is the operative word. I show you how I did that. So anyway, I made these 4 little sweet little, they're just pinned onto my batting here just to show you for demonstration. 4 lovely little quilts, individual quilts. Now they're not bound. That's a little border, and I just did right sides together and turned them inside out. But it looks sort of like a binding, how I did it. I did have to hand sew. I did have to hand stitch the bottom, at the bottom 4 inches of each one. And I used an actual fabric marker to sort of outline, whereas if you would want to, and I explained this in my video, if you'd want to satin stitch these on, or raw edge applique, or a blanket stitch, then you could do that and actually make them that you could toss them in the wash. These are going up on the wall with little tiny little tacks. That's fine. And so I used the fabric marker to outline my teapots. I think they're sweet, and it just reminds me of my my plates that I had to donate, that I got rid of. Anyway, so that's that. I was in my sewing room. I got creative. I was thinking that the background is not just a plain background. I show you. The background is about 4 different fabrics, 4 different fabrics that I used. Sort of in a 4-patch and then a log cabin manner. The backing, which I'll show you, is real pretty backing. I'll show you that when I go back into my sewing room. But these are my, again, they're just pinned on here, but they lay lovely and flat, and they measure about 11 inches square, something like that. You can make these any size, and you could use any image you would want. You could, if you just wanted to do a pretty little lovely heart on a little mug rug this big, the exact same principle applies. So that's my ode to my lovely plates. They were teacups actually, but these are teapots. Made them a bit easier. You could actually, you could embellish this. You could put more collage, cut out collage flowers around it. A small tiny little quilt like this just lends itself. The actual way I made that lends itself to making even a larger quilt. You know, if you wanted to say a 29 or 30 inch wall hanging, which I have done, it's sort of the same principle. You just do a background and just start adding. Again, not a tutorial, but showing you how I actually made and got the images for my series of 4 little teapot mug rugs, or teapot quilts. Yeah, I wonder who has my other plates. Hope they weren't ever thrown out. They were so lovely. I like, we actually, I actually might pull this off the wall. We like to have tea parties, as you know, and so as things start to open up again, I plan on having a tea party on our deck. And Jen will be here. We've not been together. I know a lot of you are missing our Jen, but hopefully as things start to get safer and back to some kind of normal, then yeah, we will be coming to you, maybe from our woods. Jen's a country girl too. All right, folks, anyway, I hope you enjoy this over my shoulder, peek over my shoulder to see how I made my little quilts. All right, thanks again, and love from the Trueloves. Bye. As I said in the beginning, you're just looking over my shoulder for this little project that I'm doing. I really do miss those plates. I don't know where they got to. I believe I gave them away. But this is sort of my ode to my my lovely plates. Anyway, what I'm doing is I'm actually just making 4 little quilts here, just sort of almost a collage. Actually, they could be placemats, mugs, rugs, whatever, as I was saying in the beginning. So this is how far I've gotten. These are finished, except I have to stitch the bottom. I have to stitch the bottom here where I turned it. And I sort of, which one? This was, I believe, the first one I did. I sort of learned what to do. I sort of cut the batting away when I turned that under, because these are self-bound. There's no binding on them, although it looks like binding. It's just the border, and I show you how I've done that. Now, just put that aside. The first thing I have done is I've actually made the little background. Now, by all means, you can use a 10-inch square. 10-inch square with a little bit of border and a little bit of fabric. What I did, as you can see here, I had just pulled from my stash all different little fabrics. As you know, I like to do that. I like to make a background interesting. I could have done a white background, and you would have actually gotten the same look. If you look, it looks like a teapot on a white background, right? But when you come up close, as I do a lot of my collage quilts, I make the background sort of just I guess a collage, as I'm saying, of different, very, very, very similar fabrics, and yet they're not the same. These are all white and pale pink, the palest pink fabrics. As you can see here, I have a stripe that I pulled. I have a pink on white polka dot. I have a pale white rose on a pale pink, and then I have another sort of scrolly pink and white, one slightly shade deeper. I just think it makes the background a little bit more interesting when you're looking at it, as opposed to a teapot on a white background. Now, what I've also done is I had a little bit of fabric left over from a project. As you can see, this project does not take much fabric at all. Again, if you wanted to use a plain background with a little bit of border. What I did for this size, whatever size it is, I believe, well, what I actually did in here is I cut out 4-inch squares right there. 1, 2, 3, 4. I put them together. And then I cut for this one. This is just a 4 patch. This is how I began. And then I did a 2-inch of this sort of log cabin effect just on one side and the other side. And then I did a 1.5 inch over here on this side and this side. That's it. And then I bordered it with a 1.5 inch. That's it. So you can make this whatever size you would want. If you wanted to make it smaller, just do a small little 4 patch. Or if you have an orphan block hanging around that's more neutral, you can do that. Again, this is just over my shoulder. This ends up, I believe, about 12 inches, 11 inches square or something like that. Just a small little quilt. As you can see, I have bordered this. I have bordered my background here, and I've bordered exactly like I would. I put the 2 on the side and 2 on the top, and then what I have done is the border acts as what you would be looking at, a binding, and then I've done my background. Again, I've made these in a really pretty fabric that I had that they could almost be reversible if you were using them for placemats or mug rugs or something like that. These are going up on my wall, just with little tacks, little pins, the 4 of them. So now, so this is my background. This is my background square, okay? What I have done is I have created a pattern, okay? Now I'll show you my other patterns. So here are my patterns for my other ones, okay? So that one is that one. That one is this one. That one is this one. And I'm going to be doing this one. Now, as you can see, they are mirror imaged, okay? What I've done is I've made a pattern, and then I've put it on my steam-a-seam, and then it becomes that mirror image, but I'll get to that point. But how did I get my patterns? What you can do is on a computer, I don't know if you can do it on an iPad, but on my PC, on my home computer, I have a screen in front of me, a monitor. What I do is I type in free Vectors, V-E-C-T-O-R, free teapot vector, okay? Now, you have to be very careful that you get a free image. There's a lot of copyrights, there's a lot of royalties, there's a lot of downloads that you have to pay for, but there are thousands of free images, okay, for anything in the world that you can think of. But in this case, my 4 teapots. So this teapot vector came up, and it was smaller. It was a smaller image, okay? And you can download, enlarge it, blah, blah, blah. But what I do is when I see an image, it was about that big. When I see this image, what I did is all I do is on my computer, I go over to the dots. Again, I'm not computer literate, but I was shown how you can zoom in and make something big, make your whole screen big. So I zoomed in like 200%. Okay, I've enlarged my entire screen so that this image, which is free, becomes big. What I do then is with a Sharpie, I take my copy paper, I stick it up to my computer, and I just trace it around. And boom, there is my pattern. Okay, so there's my pattern. I know that's going to fit on my little background there, just like these have right there. Now, how do I get this onto there? So I have this product, and this is Pelon. This is Wonder Under. Pelon 805 Wonder Under. Oh, that's in Spanish. Okay, Wonder Under is a highly versatile paper-backed fusible web that turns any fabric into fusible fabric. It has no grain, so it can be cut and applied in any direction and is sewing machine safe. The fabric will maintain a soft hand after fusing. 805 Wonder Under bonds fabric to fabric or to any porous surface such as wood or cardboard. Okay, so that is my Wonder Under, and this is how it comes. Okay, it has a paper on this side, and it has this webbing with a glue, a double-sided glue, very, very tissue thin on the other side, but it's protected by the paper. So what I do now is I take my pattern, which I've done with a Sharpie. As you can see that through the viewfinder. It's nice and bold. I take my pattern, my paper here. I'm going to use another Sharpie. And not to waste it because it's expensive, I just take this product here to the very, size that I can get. I can trace my pattern onto my Wonder Under, the paper side. Okay, so with my Sharpie, I'm going to trace this pattern that I've traced off my computer onto my paper product here. It's not perfect, but it's great. Okay, so I can then, my pattern's not touched, and here is my my paper here. So this is the bit I want. I'll put this away. Now, for this project, I had quite a few bits of extra floral fabric. That's why I said it's. And this is just a bit that I had left over. So what I'm doing is, for my floral fabric, I want, as you can see, I want a really high contrast of my teapot. So what I've done is I've pulled out this dark against my light background. So I've isolated the place that I want my teapot. I don't want it just to be a plain pink teapot with a bit of flower in it, okay? I want the whole flower teapot. Okay. Oh, hello, Maxwell. I want the whole flower teapot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of eyeball where I think I want my teapot pattern to be on this busy fabric. And I think I want it something like that. The majority of my teapot is going to be a big yellow flower. But what I do now is I'm going to turn this over, and again, you can see the pattern. You can see the pattern on the reverse side of my fabric here, okay? Now, what I'm going to do is, remember I said this is going to become mirror image. So my teapot looks like the spout's going over that way. but when I actually fuse it onto my fabric, it's going to go the other way. So what I'm going to do is, again, I've isolated this large flower with these flowers here, and I see that my flower is going the proper way. I want my teapot to be, you know, proper. So my spout is going to have a little bit of a pink flower at the end. My handle is going to have a little bit of flower, and then it has a big bold yellow flower. Actually, it's almost yellow. Now, do I want that? Yeah, I think I want that. I'll have a yellow flower on my other one, on this teapot. Yeah, it has yellow and pink. So now I can see that my pattern fits really nicely there, and with the paper side up, obviously, the glue side down onto the wrong side of my fabric, I'm just going to press it exactly like the manufacturer says. You want the glue to melt, and as I always say, become whatever fusible become that you ever are using, you want that fusible to become one with your fabric. So hold it on there. I do not use steam on this product. I don't use steam anyway in my iron. Okay, so now I know that that's pretty well fused out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that out with a nice pair of sharp scissors, just around the edges there. Now, since this is a fiddly piece of pattern to cut out, okay, I don't know if you can see that. I can see that. That's fiddly. I have used these scissors, and you know I'm not sponsored by anybody, but these are Karen K. Buckley. They're called Perfect Scissors. These are the 6-inch. Oh my word. They have a tiny, 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 tiny micro serrated edge. And when you are cutting out any tiny little bits of fabric, these sort of grip the fabric, and they're excellent for collage. Jen and I got them at a quilt store, and as you can see, I mean, you're thinking, oh, I have a nice pair of little sharp scissors, but boy, oh boy, I have a million pairs of sharp scissors. These, when I want to cut out something fairly precise, these really do the beautiful trick. So I'll just cut this image out. There's my lovely teapot. Oh, I like it. It shows the red on the handle, the pink, but a big yellow flower. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my background fabric, and I have them configured that this sort of a 4-patch and then the log cabin on these two sides are like that. And as you can see, my pattern went one way. My cutout is going the other way. Okay, so you must always remember that when you're using a fusible paper web. Okay, so now what I do is sometimes the web, the paper here, you have to peel the paper off. It takes a little bit. So what I do is I just score it. I just score it down the middle like that and start it. And then you can just peel the paper off and then fuse it. Much easier that way. You can then just fuse it to your background. What I'm doing is I have a background fabric here that I quite love, and it has sort of hearts and it's delightful. Hearts and flowers. Now I'm not going to be real specific with this, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut out exactly the size of my top here. Exactly the size. Straighten that up a little bit. So I have the batting the exact size of my background. My backing. And then this goes this way. This is directional. With the right sides, the pretty sides together, so that I can see my border. You see that? I can see where my border is. I don't want to be sewing blind. I want to be able to see my border. So I know that this is the top. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my machine then I'm going to sew this on 3 sides, and then I'm going to leave an opening at the bottom. I've stitched it around. I'm on my last bit here, or my second to last bit. And as you can see, because I can see where my border is. I can see where my border is from here to here. When I turn it, I'll have like an instant binding. And it is about 1/4 of an inch. And again, I cut this, I think, at about 1.5 inches or 1 1/4 inches, something like that. But you can make your binding however large you would want. So I'm coming down to this point here. My corner. I do back stitch in my corners. Leave that about 1/4 of an inch away. Put my needle down. Now, I cut my batting away here. So I want to stop my stitching right here. Right there, I can feel it. Back stitch there. And now I'm going to go this way. This is what I'm saying. Here is my stop. There's my stop of my fabric right there. I went off there too. So I'm going to go down here, back stitch that. So when I go to turn this inside out, there's 0 stress on that turning seam. What I do now is I'm not going to clip these corners. I quite like the little bit of bulk that you would almost have in binding. What I do is I'm pushing in my opening here. I'm pushing. I'm not pulling. I'm pushing with my thumb. There you go. Again, no stress on that seam. I'm pushing that, and then I'll just find my corners. Lovely little quilt. And then this opening here, it just turns beautifully. My batting is out of the way. I can turn that inside there, and this one I'll go and press it, make it fit like that from seam to seam, and then I will hand stitch that opening right there. I will hand stitch that one because I'm not stitching all the way around the edge. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to press this, and then I'll be right back, and I'll show you how I'm going to secure this. So I've ironed this so it's nice and flat, and what I'm going to do is just in the corner where you would have your sort of, if you were machining it anyway, your binding, just do a little back stitch, and then I'm just going to go right in the ditch there, just sort of to make that as it were, that binding sort of stand up proud. Entire thing. However, if you wanted to practice your free motion quilting, you could by all means practice your free motion quilting around your whatever image you have. So now I have to hand sew the edges here. But what I've done, I don't know if you can see the difference. Probably not, because it's fairly minuscule. Okay, if you were wanting to use these as a placemat or a mug rug that you would be washing, I would recommend you satin stitch, either zigzag satin stitch or a blanket stitch or another decorative stitch around your image here, okay? Or a free motion quilting if you wanted to do that, and it's a raw edge. Well, absolutely fine. I would probably just do a raw edge because these are fiddly. These are a little fiddly, and I don't want to spend a million hours doing a tiny little zigzag. I would just free motion quilt, just a raw edge applique around the edge, just to secure it down. That would actually quilt your image down. I'm not using these in a practical way. They're just pretty. So what I have done is I have a fabric marker. Yeah. It's for fabric. It's for fabric, okay? And mine are going up on the wall. They're just going to be inert. They're not doing anything. They're not going in the wash. What I've done here, you can hardly see it, but my images, I really wanted them to stand out a bit proud of my fabric, of my background. So what I've done on these two, and what I'm going to do on here, is maybe you can see a before. Let me just see that. A before, and then I'm just going to go in, and I'm just going to outline with my marker just a little bit, just to sort of you know, make this just stand out a little bit more. And again, I don't know if you can see that, but to me, to my eye, it just pops that just a little bit more. I'm going to do exactly on this, and you might be able to see it because you see the yellow of my pattern. And again, what you obviously want, you want a contrast. You definitely want a contrast. So there, I'm going to sew these, and there are my 4 little, in a nod to my lovely plates that have gone missing. So, yeah, I love them. All right, folks, thank you for looking over my shoulder, my sweet little project for this morning. All right. Love from the Trueloves.